Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Vanir,
Here.
Commissioner Jelka,
Here.
Commissioner Commissioner Larson,
Here.
Commissioner Peck,
You can call me Aaron. Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here.
I'd invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will now have the Citizens Forum, a time for citizens to come before the Commission to discuss anything that is not on the official agenda. Is there anyone here from the public? Seeing not, we have no awards or proclamations, public hearings, and items scheduled for a certain time.
Item 5.1, public hearing on petition number 4306, requesting vacation of a portion of Broadway Boulevard and the North Street right-of-way.
Mr. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This petition was filed and we set it for a public hearing notice, which was scheduled for today. But in our research on this matter, we found that the right-of-way was originally acquired by the State Highway Commission, and we feel there's additional time needed to confirm that the title has in fact passed to the City of Salina, so we're in a position to determine what's surplus, and then additional survey in the field just to establish the area that we believe could be surplus. And so our recommendation would be, after any questions or comments, to close the public hearing and continue it to August 4th to allow those two items to be addressed.
Okay.
Be happy to address any questions about the petition.
I'll go ahead and open the public meeting.
Yeah. We did inform the owner that there's going to be some additional time needed to clarify those things, so he understood that.
Are there any questions? No. No public comment? Close the public hearing meeting.
Mayor Vanir, I would move that we continue this hearing until August 4th of 2008 to allow additional surveying, fieldwork, and chain of title research to be completed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to continue the public hearing on petitions 4306 until the August 4th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.2, public hearing on petition 4307, requesting vacation of platted restricted access in 3 locations along the east side of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Lakewood School Addition. Sub-item 5.2a, first reading ordinance number 08-10455.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wanted to point out that there is a typo in line 2 of your report. This is not a 2008 plat. It's a 2000 plat that was done before the school was built and opened. And while we helped with the developing and processing this petition, we want to make sure that you know that Mr. Frazier and Mr. Snyder are available for questions also about the condition of this roadway. But this dates back to 2000 when this site was selected as proposed location for a new middle school campus. And as part of that, there was a replat done to create a full campus for the middle school, and that was done to eliminate some internal lot lines and easements and streets that interfered with making this a one large lot campus. And at the time, there was a street called Circle Drive, which extended east from Ohio. That was renamed Lakewood Circle and extended farther east as part of this process. I think, as you're aware, the original design or intention was that the primary access to the middle school would be from North Ohio via Lakewood Circle that runs beside Orchlands there. That is a dedicated public street. The school district proposed a driveway coming off the south side of Lakewood Circle, and that would be the primary access into the campus. The idea was that the main entrance and drop-off area would be on the northwest side of the building, but there are loop drives all the way around the building. Lakewood Circle continues on after that driveway and terminates in a cul-de-sac. As part of this plan, the school district was able to acquire a strip of land from Larry Triplett, and that strip was used to provide access out to North Street. And this was done to provide a secondary entrance to the school site and to provide a way for parents, staff, buses, emergency vehicles to have a second way to get in and out of the property. The other advantage is it allowed you to exit the school site and get to a signalized intersection at North and Ohio, because there were no plans to signalize Lakewood Circle and Ohio Street. The road that goes out to North Street is not a public street. It is owned and maintained by USD 305. Back in 2000, at the time that the plat was being reviewed, the Planning Commission recommended, and the City Commission at that time concurred, that there should be no vehicle access or no vehicle connection between the school site and that asphalt road that's east of the school. Referring to this roadway right here, at the time, I believe there was a fence line along that whole property line. And the reasons for that at the time were, it's an internal park road. It was not and has not been improved to accept increased traffic. There was also concern that at the time there was a load limit bridge that crossed just north of Iron. That bridge has since been relocated as a pedestrian bridge at the corner of the campus. As part of that plat approval, there was a note or restriction placed on the plat that said there would be no vehicular access to Lakewood Park across the east line of Lakewood School. And then in 2002, the middle school opened. As you may recall, there was quite a bit of congestion, confusion, gridlock, particularly about intermingling of buses and parents bringing children to school. City staff was asked to step in and provide some assistance, and a plan was devised to somehow separate the buses from the parent drop-off traffic. City crews were involved in removing the fence and putting down a gravel surface to basically create a circle drive or ring road coming off the park road. This was considered to be somewhat of an emergency situation at the time, and gravel was put down first and then asphalt, and it has been used that way ever since the school opening. As you're aware, the USD 305 has been evaluating access to their schools as part of the Safe Routes to School program. And in our discussions with the school district, we noted that this drive that was considered temporary or interim at one time had taken on a degree of permanence. And so we worked with the school district to develop a petition requesting that access restriction be lifted to allow this to remain in place permanently. They were also in discussions with their consultant, Booker, Willis, and Ratliff, looking again at their on-campus circulation, and a suggestion was made by their consultant that a driveway connection to the park road might be one solution to helping to alleviate on-site congestion. So the petition was modified or added on to request two things. One is to ratify and make permanent those two driveway openings to the north, and the second part is requesting that you favorably consider a request for a new opening farther to the south that would connect their on-campus road with the asphalt park road. Again, when this was looked at back in 2000, it was noted that the park road was not designed or intended or built as a public street, and some of the ways that it is not a public street is that it is on park land and not in a public street right-of-way. It's not built to city standards in terms of the pavement width or the thickness. It does not have curb and gutter sections. It does not have a name like a public street would, and it has a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit for Park Road and not a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, which is what you'd have on a public street. Again, at the time, there was concern that there might be additional wear and tear on the road, additional traffic in the park, and concern about the condition of the bridge next to Iron. The two main things that have changed since that time is that buses have been entering from the north and using that Circle Drive, and the bridge at the south end has been replaced with an upgraded bridge. If you look at the request and the circulation pattern, we think that what's likely to occur is that parents coming down Iron are likely to, instead of going down to Ohio, come up Lakewood, drive here and enter the school site either in this pattern or this pattern, and most likely exit out the same way. And that rather than going all the way down to Ohio. So the addition of that driveway would probably change the traffic pattern and result in additional traffic on that road. As far as the fiscal impact on the city, I think this is where Mr. Frazier can help us here, but the road has been looked at. The primary responsibility is with Parks and Rec, but Public Works does assist with snow removal and pothole patching. Both of those departments are concerned that there may be additional wear and tear if there's school-related traffic put on the road. There is discussion about a slurry seal project that would help seal in and maintain the condition of the asphalt, would not add anything to the thickness or quality of the pavement. There's also a rough estimate of approximately $750,000 is what it would take to fully reconstruct that road with full depth asphalt and adding a curb and gutter. In our discussions, both in 2000 and at this time, it was determined that this is really a policy decision for you all to make about how park roadways should be used. This is an unusual road. It connects Iron and North at either end, and it does carry some through traffic, but it is not it's not a public street. It's still a park roadway. We've identified three alternatives for you to consider. One is to approve and make permanent those north driveway openings for the bus drive, and also to approve the request for the new additional driveway connection. You could ratify those two north driveway openings for the bus drive, but deny the request for the additional driveway connection. You could deny the request for the additional driveway connection and also decline to permanently ratify those north driveway openings leading from North Street for the bus circulation. And there is a fourth option that we identified and should have provided for you, and that is you could postpone consideration of this request today if you wanted a traffic study to be prepared and submitted. That would project the amount of increased traffic that would likely occur if this driveway connection were made. I think I might let Mike Frazier describe a little bit for you the current condition of the road, what it consists of, its thickness and its base.
As Dean has said, is that this road is primarily a park road. My understanding is that it was at one time a gravel road that has had an overlay placed on top of it. When I've asked our maintenance people to give me an idea of the thickness of that, they weren't really sure, but they said it could be possibly in the area of about 5 inches thick. But it does not have the structure and the base that our regular residential or our arterial or collector streets have. It's basically a gravel road that they've put an overlay on top of. The condition of the road is fair. It serves well as a park road, but if we're going to introduce additional traffic to this, we're probably going to see some increased deterioration. Some of the problems that we've noticed have been on the south end, middle to the south end of that stretch of roadway. There's some alligator cracking that's starting to develop in that area. The question or the answer or the situation we really don't know is it what is the amount of additional traffic that's going to be introduced to this location. So we really don't know that. But obviously additional traffic on that type of roadway will escalate and increase the need for repairs. As Dean has said, total full-depth reconstruction of that piece of roadway is going to run somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000. That includes 8 inches of asphalt, sub-base, and curb and gutter. What we would do probably in advance of that, depending on what we find in the next few months if this is approved, is that how much traffic is going to be on that. If there's not a lot of traffic that's going to be using that, what we could do is we could come in with a slurry seal. To slurry seal that with 2 coats would cost about $63,000 and should take care of it for a situation that doesn't require a large volume of traffic. But we just really don't know at this time how much is going to be introduced there. In addition to that is that there may be an impact to the intersection there at Iron where a traffic signal may need to be located there. If that's the case, that's another $150,000 or somewhere abouts in that area that we would have to pay for. We talked a little bit about sidewalk. Is that if we were to include sidewalk on that project, it's probably another $75,000. So it really kind of depends on to a large extent, is that how much additional traffic are we expecting to have on that roadway, and then how well is that roadway able to handle that increased volume. And then again, just to let you know, is that it was an old gravel road that has a asphalt overlay above it. So it's going to deteriorate at a quicker rate than it would a constructed city street.
I think at this time we'd be open to any further questions that commissioners might have.
The
Yeah.
price? Oh, wait.
Go ahead and open the public hearing now.
The prices that you're talking about for improvements at all the way from North Street to Iron, the 750 or the 63,000, that's the entire length of the Park Road, or is it just up to the new proposed intersection?
Up to the new location where the driveways would be.
So then from there north where the buses run would not be improved for 700 in that original 750,000. So we're another several hundred thousand.
Could be.
Did you say the buses do use, by reading this and by looking at that picture, they use that little connecting point right there, that little piece?
No,
There is a fence here
Right.
and a gate here, so the buses come up here and they unload and load right here. And so there's not a driveway or vehicle connection here. The buses come in and load or unload, and then as best we understand.
So during the school year, the buses are doing that?
Yes.
Are other vehicles doing that also? Is that what you're saying?
I don't believe so. I believe it's buses only.
Okay, what is that little piece right there? Do you see that little, does that connect? I couldn't tell on my picture,
that's
and
the
I couldn't.
proposal.
This right
That's
here
the
is what-
proposed.
this
That's
is
where they're
what-
going to open it
this is
to
what
make
they're-
it bigger than where it is up there. Up there in
Well,
that.
Right now, there is no physical way that you can drive out of this campus and get onto this road. And this proposal right here is to build a driveway so that if
Right.
you're on campus, you could drive out or come in that way. It
Right.
does not exist today.
But, and if we do approve that, you're going to close that, the other one?
No.
No.
They'd both stay open?
Yes.
Those are the two
Yes.
northeast entrances that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I was in that mess in the year 2000 or 2002, and it was a nightmare. So I don't know if we can improve that any better now with all the vehicles. Obviously, the children don't drive, so there are a lot of vehicles dropping off kids with the buses and all of that. I was on that road also that you're talking about from right there by Lakewood, and that is I mean, that you can just tell by driving on it that it's not a street. I mean, it's like you said, they just poured what they pour on the gravel.
It was a gravel road that it was just an oiled road that they had for many, many years. They just put a asphalt overlay.
Yeah, well, what's the duration of that? I mean, how long is that going to last?
Well, it's starting to come apart in places right now.
What about how has the traffic from the buses affected the?
Interestingly enough, is that at the north end is that there's not as much deterioration of that piece of pavement. So north of that, the Circle Drive is actually in better condition than that point south.
Could we draw any comparisons? I mean, does a bus traveling across there equal 5 cars going across there? I'm just curious if we can look at that north part and say, well, the buses are less traffic than what we expect coming in from the south, but they're obviously harder on the surface as well.
Well, heavier vehicles have more of an impact, than lighter vehicles. So I think that's the thing to be concerned about. But the north end of that roadway with the bus traffic, where we're getting the bus traffic, has held up very well considering the amount of traffic. So we're not seeing a lot of locations of distress at the north end.
So with the exception of the current cracking, we could expect for that type of, if we slurry sealed it or something like that, we could expect for the southern portion of that to be able to hold or handle at least the increased traffic reasonably well, maybe.
Well, it's kind of hard to say. It really kind of depends on the sub-base material, and the sub-base of that is a gravel road, and that it's been covered over with asphalt. There are a number of locations to the south of that point where there are alligator cracking, and there are some points of distress that aren't going to last much longer. They're going to need to be repaired. Now, how long it's been like that, it could have been like that for a long time.
Mike, you mentioned a potential for a traffic signal. Quick question on that. Do we actually foresee the need to do a traffic study to determine that based on traffic patterns on Ohio today, where all the traffic filters out into that, what is that? That's a 5-lane, is that a 4-lane section right there?
Yes.
So all the traffic today filters out into Ohio, which is a pretty busy road. And in this scenario, we're not sure how it would balance, but some would still go out Ohio, some would probably use the other access. Again, it all depends on where people are coming from.
Yes.
And I don't know that we have a good indication of what the allocation would be. But given that, there isn't a signal right now in Ohio, and I assume that's because we don't believe that it's warranted out there.
That's correct.
So when you split the traffic like that, do we really think that there's any indication at all that there's really even the possibility of a need for a signal at any place else on Lakewood Drive, whether it be Iron or North or wherever that might be?
We just don't know. There's nothing that we have at this point in time that says that we're going to need a traffic signal at that location. We may not. It may not be necessary. We just really don't know. We don't know, where these cars are going to be coming from as they approach the school, or where they're going to be leaving from, which driveway they're going to exit from.
Mike, in bad weather on your list of priorities, where does the Lakewood Road rank if we have 6 inches of snow as far as clearing it?
Well, it's a lower level priority road.
What happens if we do this and it becomes...
We'd have to move this up in the priority.
Because it's a school.
Because it's a school route.
Okay. And the yellow lines here that I am assuming are proposed sidewalks or trails along the old channel?
Yeah, the yellow line refers to what is going to be the subject of a grant application to KDOT for a hike-bike trail that would be built starting at the new Lakewood Bridge and run up and connect to the pedestrian bridge. But it would be like a 10-foot hike-bike path that would also serve as a sidewalk.
Okay, and then the blue line, is that a proposed sidewalk, or what is that?
That's
Going
pretty
up
much to indicate the area that is not in such good condition compared to the north piece.
Okay. And the red line?
Red line, it would be if the city in the future would have its own hike-bike trail
Okay.
network, how that would tie into what the school district's proposing.
All right, and the sidewalk on the bridge crossing the channel coming off of Iron to go into Lakewood is on which side?
I believe it's on the east.
How are we going to get the kids across Lakewood on that bike trail if we have cars flying in and out of there, dropping their kids off?
You would have to establish a crossing point there, but yes, that would be, if you had pedestrians or bicycles, they would have to cross that to get to the piece on school district property.
Okay, my next question then is, and maybe you don't have the answer to this, looking at the map of the Lakewood campus, there are arrows drawn on the, I guess on the circle driveways. Is that the traffic pattern at Lakewood now?
That is not the traffic pattern today. I think that's where Mr. Kennedy from USD 305 could best depict. Those arrows represent some conceptual thoughts that they are working on right now prior to the upcoming school year for some possible circulation changes, and I think Mr. Kennedy would be in the best position to talk about their thinking on that.
Where is the pedestrian light on Ohio? I know it's not a traffic signal, but it's pedestrian. I know the light's on the corner.
It is a mid-block crossing.
Where that red line is?
Where that red line is,
Yep.
right here. And there's a sidewalk here, it connects over to the pedestrian bridge and comes into the campus.
Any other questions of staff?
Has the school district hinted at any willingness to participate in the improvement of that road there if we were to make this switch?
That was not the case in the year 2000. So that was one of the reasons that the access out to North Street became important, because the assumption was that you couldn't go east and you didn't want to have only one way in and out. So that's why the North Street access became important at that time. But in 2000 there was not an interest in upgrading that to a higher standard so it could be used.
We haven't talked to them since then.
Not about upgrading, no.
What bothers me a little bit about it is that, and I don't want to act like counterparts in the county that sometimes act like they represent an entirely different group of people than we do. I couldn't think of a tactful way to say that. I don't want to act like we represent a totally different group than the school board does, but it seems like kind of transferring part of their budget to us, because I would foresee traffic would dramatically improve on that street, or predict what that traffic study would show, and
Improve or increase?
would dramatically increase traffic on that.
As I said, the school district and Mr. Kennedy are working with Booker, Willis, and Ratliff to re-examine the circulation in total at that school, and this request came up as part of that discussion, and so he would best be able to tell you what some of their thinking is about circulation patterns at the school.
Mr. Kennedy?
Thank you. I may clarify a little bit, too.
Could you just give your name and your address for the record, please?
Yes. Address, Ken Kennedy, 1204 Martin, Salina, Kansas.
Thank you. It's
And
for the folks in TV land.
I'm the Director of Operations for USD 305.
Thank you.
I might clarify briefly. At the present time, while the arrows are a bit misleading on the street headed north out of Lakewood leading to North Street, we do not have two-way traffic at the present time. That's one of the concepts, is to turn that into two-way traffic. Presently, there's only one entrance into the Lakewood school property, and that is from Ohio. Both lanes headed north to North Street are actually exit lanes.
Oh.
So presently, all of the traffic, and there is a good number of cars who do transport students to school, as you probably well know if you've had children that attend there. And all of them have to come in and exit. They come in off Ohio and then exit out North Street that direction. Traffic flow around Lakewood has been a problem since the inception of the building, as many of you may well know. It's never flown very well around the perimeter of the building. We have some difficulty on the north side where the Circle Drive comes in for the bus, in that we have to have a stop sign that goes across there during loading and unloading times to stop traffic from being able to flow around the north end of the building. Thank you, Dean. This road here is one way only right now. It heads straight north out to North Street. Presently, if you bring students into Lakewood and you have to come in off of Ohio and down this direction and then make a decision about right here as to whether you'll turn and go left up in front of Lakewood or if you'll go onto the far back parking lot. We have encouraged parents to do this, but consequently they get trapped into here. They cannot go back this direction. They can come up here and get stopped here because buses are typically unloading, so they choose to not do that. So basically the only access to drop off students by car right now is to come off Ohio, come around this way, circle through here, and then go out North Street. Not as many, we believe, would use certainly this entrance into Lakewood as would come from the east side of town because there's the west side of town, because there's far few patrons and parents that live on the east side of town. But we do believe this would certainly help the congestion that occurs on Ohio in the mornings and afternoons in dropping off and picking up students. Of course, our goal with the Safe Routes to School is to encourage more students to bike and walk to school. However, that's been our goal all along, and we see that trend actually be going the other way. I think statistics now say about 13% of students are all that bike and walk to school. The rest are transported by bus and by parents. In Lakewood's situation, very few, as it may seem unlikely, not as many as you would hope would be eligible for bus transportation. We wish more were, but they have to reside 2.5 miles or more from school to be eligible for school bus transportation. So consequently, its location really, more parents here than maybe other schools in our district transport their students to school because many of them reside less than the 2.5 mile required distance and then a little too far for parents to feel comfortable having them bike or walk. So this would really help a great deal in the congestion that we experience now 2 times a day, basically, morning and afternoon. The issue about the road, we really haven't discussed the district's willingness to participate in any kind of repairs of that road. Typically, school districts do not participate in public street improvement, but this is a lake road, and I certainly couldn't address that because that would be our Board of Education's decision to discuss that. This has worked extremely well at the north part with our buses being able to come in here. It certainly would cripple us to lose that access, and since it's only temporary, as Mr. Andrews said, it would be critical that we try to maintain at least those 2 accesses. And I don't know the difference in the construction of the road going north as compared to going south, and it's held up fairly well, as apparently has been stated here, going north. So my hope would be that the extra traffic would not deteriorate the road further going south. And at the time the building was built, as Mr. Andrews said, the bridge didn't lend itself to traffic, and now we have an extremely high quality bridge at the south end of the Lakewood Drive, so therefore it does lend itself a little better to traffic. I don't know what questions I might answer. It seems to be, according to the studies we've done, very advantageous to our district to be able to have that entrance into Lakewood. We think it would be an advantage to the patrons who are delivering students to school, but certainly if there is a concern about the road, and I understand that as well.
Well, I guarantee you, I think if you open that up, people that are coming down Iron, they are going to use that road. I know they will. That's going to increase tremendously.
I would guess that about a third, I'm thinking about a third of the parents that deliver their students today would probably use that entrance opposed to Ohio. That would be my thought, in just judging the amount of the patrons that live on that side of the road.
Ken, do you have a thought as to if that was just an exit only on that east side? Because you mentioned with the school buses, it makes it difficult when you come around that side of the building that blocked the traffic, those wanting to go out. But if that was an exit only, that would alleviate that part of the problem at least. Have you thought about what impact that might be?
We didn't study that or discuss it, but certainly that would help. There's no question about it, because as I stated earlier, one of the problems now is entrance here, but few will go to the back parking lot because there's really no way to get out of that. And so if you could exit here, that would certainly help. That would reduce by half, probably, the traffic on that particular stretch of road.
Mr. Kennedy, I'm no traffic expert, but if these arrows are any indication of what you're planning on doing, you're going to have a real disaster on your hands.
Which arrows are you referring to?
Well, you have two-way traffic on this loop all the way around the school. Is that correct?
We currently have two-way traffic on this loop around the school, with the exception of out front, and we're not intending at this time to, even though it was in this drawing and of the initial discussion, we're not intending at this time, if this is allowed by the city, we won't make the entrance off of North Street two-way traffic, nor will we have two-way traffic in front of the school. But presently, there is two-way traffic all around this part of the building. So you can actually drive like this and come around the building this direction.
So somebody coming in off of Lakewood could make a left turn?
Yeah. You go
Coming
around
here?
to the front.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's correct. And we did discuss that. That has been discussed with the engineers about the possibility of left turn here, and so there would have to be stop signs at that particular intersection, no question
That's
about
going
it.
to speed things up?
It'll speed it up considerably compared to what we have now.
Okay.
That little connecting street, if it were approved today, would that be built in time for school to open this year, or is it going to be somewhere in the middle of the fall term?
I'm doubting it could be constructed in time for school to open. It would be difficult to get that done.
Okay. So even if we just, yeah. So you won't know until next spring, really, whether it works.
Mm-hmm. That's how they can't do it.
You know, we could only do what the engineers, we worked with the engineers, we met as groups and teams and discussed the possibilities. And so far, it's interesting, but we've been working on the traffic dilemmas that Lakewood's experienced since it opened in 2002, and it's just a difficult facility to gain access to. And it's because of the limited number of street entrances and exits that are around the facility.
You knew that when you built it.
Pardon?
I say you knew that when you built it, though.
I don't know that. I wasn't. Can't answer that.
It's not Ken's fault.
Somebody did.
Do you foresee a lot of backup if there's a stop sign on that little entrance right there? Do you see a potential for traffic backup, significant traffic backup along that south entrance there?
You know, I think you would probably see a potential for some traffic backup along here, but actually there will be very little traffic headed on north. The buses will go north as they presently do. Most people will be coming here, going in, and then exiting here and going back to the south. So I don't see, there'll be some traffic backup to turn in, no doubt about it. Probably some backup on this lane here trying to get turned out to go back to the south. But as far as traffic crossing each other, I don't see that much in the morning or evening, either one. Really, and if you think about non-controlled entrances to busy roads, if you think of Central, it has two entrances off of Crawford, and South High School has two entrances onto Magnolia that are the primary entrances and exits for the school, and they're at non-controlled intersections as well, and they seem to flow fairly well. Of course, granted, those are going on 4-lane streets, but you still have to cross 2 extra lanes.
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, the city manager's authorized me to make an anecdotal comment as a parent of a Lakewood student, if that's
Shoot.
all right. Phenomena that, at least in my own experience, I live east of this location.
We need to get Greg the pointer.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's fairly common experience. It's my experience, if I'm exiting after dropping my son off, and if I'm going back home to the east, it is faster, and I always drive out to the north and then take the Lakewood Road back to Iron. It's faster.
Can you point that out? I'm not.
The machine's not on.
They don't usually let me use these things. I don't know. I shut it off, I suppose.
You need.
Oh, you hold it. Gee. There we go. Shaky. The anyway.
Far away. There's, so it's faster to
If-
go up there, just loop around, come back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't focus at that distance. Yeah, if you're going. Yeah, if I head out to the north, if I'm trying to get back home to the east, it's faster for me to go the full length of that road, and that's what I do. I make the loop, I come out, I'm back on Iron far faster than I'm going to be going out to Ohio, back to Iron, and then headed back east. In terms of utilization of that roadway and preservation of the pavement and whatever, I think anybody coming from or going back to the east, you're going to save some wear and tear, because I'm not going to drive nearly as far if I can just scoot out and be on about my business rather than looping through that the north end of the park. If I'm headed east, that's just the way I'm going to go. I don't know if it's just me. When I'm dropping a student off, I think there's a tendency to drop students off at the front, what I think is perceived to be the front. And that is, make the loop, get over on Ohio, bring them in kind of the traditional way. But if I'm going out of there, I'm going to make the loop, and if I'm headed back to the east to go back home, I make that loop. It's faster.
Oh, okay. So you go into the top of Lakewood Park.
Yeah, I use it
come all the way
now.
back down.
I use it now all the time, but the long way.
So perhaps you'd be interested in helping fund the.
Well, yeah, there you go. I probably should. Anyway, for what that's worth, and I haven't obviously made a study of it, but I think that's the natural tendency of anybody that's operating from the east. You'll tend to gravitate toward that presently and go the long way, because it's still faster than the Ohio route.
So there might not be any significant increase from,
That's, for what that's worth, that's just.
at least in. Yeah.
What Greg is saying is true, because many of us, because where we work, our central office, our district office is located here. So when we do go to Lakewood, we of course come this direction to get into Lakewood. But when we leave, it's typical for us to go to this corner of the park entrance and go around as well to come back down.
Commissioners, if that is a common pattern, ideally you would want to try to find a way, if we were going to allow any access on that east side, I think probably the best access would be exit only, forced right-hand turn, so that you get to the street, you go south, and it gets cars in and out, and you might possibly could even change. It depends on, and I'm not that familiar with the school to know as far as where there's a preference for kids to be dropped off by cars, whether it is in front, which would be the northwest side, or whether it's at southwest portion. But as you come in from Ohio, if you had a choice to either go left, go straight, or circle around that southern parking lot, if you go left, you could go out towards North Street. If you go straight or go right, circulate in the parking lot, you come around that east side, you could go out onto the Lakewood Drive and then come on out. But you could basically one way throughout the whole campus have two exits at two different locations. This is assuming you want to allow an exit on the east side. But I don't think you want folks exiting on the east side and headed back north. So I think you would want to force that traffic to the south, because it's a different, that roadway becomes a different type of roadway when it gets up into the parking area of the park to the north. It's really different at that point in time.
But you're not going to be able to turn that road into a one-way road
The
from
road
the,
itself.
the north.
You could, if well, on an exit,
north.
you can design an exit to force the direction of the car. So you could force a right-hand turn only if you wanted to do that.
Well, it seems like the obvious thing to do. I don't mean to interrupt you if you have other things to.
No, if no further questions, why?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, it seems like the obvious best path to follow would be the number one recommendation. In my mind, though, it'd be nice to have the school board chip in for that. It's kind of like a cost of the original project, in my mind.
Are there any other questions for staff? Are there any public comments? Okay, I'll now close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. I, for one, struggle with this. Again, they knew what they were getting into when they built it. The only possible way I could support this if it were an exit only. I do believe that the bus access route probably should be made permanent. That's what saves Lakewood. But I'm having a very hard time justifying turning a park road into a street. As this bike and hike trail, proposed bike and hike trail that the school is talking about comes to fruition, I think we're going to have some issues down at the Lakewood Bridge. So I'm struggling a little bit with this one, or parts of it.
Yeah, points well made. So would you be more inclined to go along with that number 2 and have some further discussion on that access point? Which basically allows the 2 driveway openings for the buses to become permanent.
Trouble with that is it doesn't change the present situation, it just makes it legal. So it still isn't.
I guess I would, if I were to support something, it would be number 2, and hopefully the school district or someone could initiate a traffic study along that road to see just what kind of traffic is there now, because I don't believe we know, and what the possibilities of growth in the traffic would be in the future.
Well, I never expected to hear that from our mayor, that he'd
I
like
know
to
it.
see a study. We got an extra $30,000? What is the deal here?
I hate
And who's
myself
paying for that?
It too. I hate myself for it too.
At any rate, I think...
He's been to that school. He knows. That's why he knows.
Well, I've been there several times, and of course there was no traffic problem this morning when I went there last, but apparently school's not in session. It is interesting that historically that this site was selected because it's theoretically centrally located if you look at a map, and it turns out to be centrally located but inaccessible, some kind of a weird black hole sort of phenomena. I really think, that if we put the little short connection over to the Lakewood Road, is that Delaware Street on the south side? Let's change the names.
Indiana is...
It's Indiana, okay. I just knew it was one of those that was close in there. Let's confuse the issue more by throwing out, changing names and protecting the guilty. That little short crossover as a two-way and then allowing left turns into a two-way, it looks to me like you get 3 cars in there, and then you're backed up onto the Lakewood, Indiana Street Road. So that is a problem. But this is one of the few projects where the traffic pattern's been changed actually at least 3 times, I think, since the school opened. And we've done it by not having a theoretical study. We've just done something and seen how it's worked and then done something else. Mm-hmm. And I'd be willing to give that shot one more shot. Go ahead and allow the 30-foot access, then allow the school district to build the little crossover street, and then let them experiment with two-way traffic, one-way traffic, one way in, one way out over the next year and a half and see how it works. I think there's advantages to having it both in and out there for the students and employees, people that would be using it from the east side, and that it may work surprisingly well. Or it may be a total disaster, in which case it would be a fairly easy matter to change it to exit only after it's built. And what we're approving is just the 30-foot wide access, or 60. How many feet wide are we making it?
Yeah, 30 is what's recommended. If I could, I'd like to ask Mr. Kennedy one more question about that, if I could. Ken, if that access to Lakewood Park Drive is two ways, which means people could enter into the school campus from Lakewood Park Drive, because of your bus traffic and the students walking across from the buses where they unload into the building on the northeast corner, would you end up limiting any right-hand turns into that campus because of that? Or would you actually have traffic up where the kids unload from the buses?
Actually, we presently have traffic. We could have more with right-hand turns. The crossing is protected by the fact that we have a little barricade we roll out that has a stop sign on it.
Okay.
So when buses are loading and unloading, we have that road cut off. And that's why people choose not to go to the backside of the school now, because they get trapped and have no way of getting out of the school until the buses are completely unloaded.
So most of the time you see the buses are there at the same time people are bringing their kids to school in vehicles, and because of that it basically blocks access at that point.
It does block access out from that side of the school, from the east side of the school, going out the north exit, it's blocked.
So that would, having two-way traffic in there might be very confusing. That's why the more you look at it, having another way from the other side of the building as an exit might make some sense there, rather than
Exit only.
yeah, possibly. I'd recommend too on this. I think the bus in and out is making that permanent is a pretty simple part of the decision. But you know, my thought is I think we could get together and look at these flows a little bit more. I mean, if we want to go ahead and require a traffic study, I think that's fine. But I think there's some data and some information we can gather based on the type of traffic. For example, most people are going to make a decision based on geography. They have pretty good indication of where people come from to go to this school because they have the geography. I think it wouldn't be that difficult to start to make a determination of what percentage of people are coming from this direction, what percentage are coming from that direction, get a pretty good idea of volumes. I have a pretty good feeling they probably counted some cars there before, and that's not going to change that much.
I'll bet Mr. Kennedy's estimate of a third's pretty close to the mark.
maybe pretty good. But when you figure out where the people are coming from and going to, then it's a lot easier to look at those flows. I'm not too sure that we couldn't come up with something possibly without a full traffic study, but looking at traffic data and having our engineers take a look at that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to put the burden of a full traffic study if we believe we can handle it without it. If we can't, we'll say we can't and bring it back and say we need to do a traffic study.
Okay.
Ken, what's your thought on that? Is that acceptable, or does that create a time frame problem? Or
if we're talking about a traffic study, we're going to have to look at a hypothetical situation based on the amount of people that live on that side of town, because traffic studies will not show you much now because of the dramatic change that will happen when we start using that road. With no access now, there basically is very little traffic except for our buses, mornings and afternoons. Once that access is open, that'll dramatically change that flow of traffic almost instantly, I would think.
So either way, we're gonna be guessing to a degree what the habits will be with the change.
That's exactly right.
But that kind of backs up your point that we might be able to fairly accurately guesstimate that without a full-fledged traffic study.
Right.
I think so. Because again, they have good information where people are coming from, and we know they're gonna, where they're going. I think too. I think we can get pretty close.
Thank you. Okay.
I like the experimenting and see what happens mode. And for the price of a study, you could throw a culvert in there and a gravel road across and try it. And you could have that done before school starts. What day? August 22nd? 13th? 13th. Well, maybe you could have that done by August 13th. I don't know.
Looking for a motion.
I tell you what, I will, to get things moving here.
But at any rate, that takes the motion to accept alternate number 1. Which, yeah, go ahead, Alan.
And Commissioners, if you want to look at the alternates, for example, number 1 talks about the 30-foot driveway. opening. You could probably rephrase that if you wanted us to look closer at whether it be one way out or two way, either one. If it's two way, then we could look at that as a temporary review for a period of time based on that, or based on the one way, whichever you prefer.
Well, I tend to agree with Commissioner Purney that the alternate entrance would be a good thing, but based on some legitimate questions and concerns raised about that, I would at the moment prefer I would move that we approve option number 2, which is to ratify the 2 emergency driveway openings for the circular bus drive, but deny USD 305's request for a driveway connection to Lakewood Park Drive, and allow staffs at both USD 305 and the city to explore that matter a little further.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we ratify the 2 emergency driveway openings in the circular bus drive, but deny USD 305's request for a driveway connection to Lakewood Drive, and instruct staff to work with the school district to explore some alternatives. All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same
Aye.
sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1 on first reading, with Commissioner Purney voting against. Going to the consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of July 7th, 2008. Item 6.2, award of contract for the conductor and duct installation, project number 082711, to Mid-Kansas Underground in the amount of $22,856.20.
Are there any items that the Commissioner would like pulled from the consent agenda?
Well, I have a question on 6.2.
Would you like to vote on that separately?
I can ask my question right away if you want me to.
Okay.
I'm not sure who to direct it to, but was this matter just a design oversight on the part of the commissioners and staff? Like wiring that should have been something we would have thought of, or
Yeah, Mr. Frazier?
You mean the inclusion of the lighting along Pacific,
mm-hmm.
if that was an oversight?
Well, at the intersection at least,
I don't know if I could.
on the cul-de-sacs.
Yeah. I don't know if I could really answer that question.
Yeah, and Commissioner, that was pretty far back. I don't think, I mean, it wasn't an intentional oversight. It wasn't an oversight. I think there was an intent that we knew when the street lighting part of the project came about, we would be working with Westar, and we would then, there must have been a conscious effort at that time to say, let's take the city's portion, for some reason not make it part of the overall project and look at it independently at that time,
Okay.
and just look at a contract to put the conduit in.
Okay.
I don't know if that, from a perspective of what kind of unit cost you get, if that was a good or bad idea, but I would imagine at that time that was probably a consideration.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, side note on that, it's too bad that part of Pacific Avenue has become a parking lot for semis, and it seems like a waste of money to supply lighting for a parking lot where semis are parked, I'm assuming illegally, almost every day of the week.
Yeah, we're working on the parking issue. The parking is a problem there right now.
Okay.
Action from the Commission?
Mayor Vanier,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. There is no development business. We'll move on to administration.
Item 8.1, general obligation temporary notes and bonds. Sub-item 8.1A, resolution number 086535, authorizing the delivery of general obligation internal improvement bonds, series 2008-A. Sub-item 8.1B, resolution number 086536, authorizing and directing issuance, sale, and delivery of general obligation temporary notes, series 2008-1. Item 8.1C, second reading ordinance number 08-10454, authorizing the issuance and delivery of general obligation internal improvement bonds series 2008-A.
Mr. Franz.
Mayor and Commissioners, thank you. This action will complete the financing on these projects. We did solicit bids on the temporary notes and the bonds and opened those bids earlier today. The bids on the temporary notes, we received 2 bids. The best bid was received from Jamie Montgomery Scott at a rate of 2.2112%. For a 1-year note. We received 5 bids on the bonds. The low bid on the bonds, and these are 15-year bonds, was from the firm of Hutchinson, Shockey, Early and Company at a true interest cost of 3.76012%. Ordinance number 08-10454 and resolution number 08-6535 finalizes the sale of the general obligation bonds. First reading of that ordinance occurred on June 23rd. The only change is at that time the amount to be issued was $3,790,000. That has been reduced to $3,720,000 as a result of primarily prepayments on special assessments. Projects included in this issue include Liberty Addition Sewer, South Ohio Corridor improvements, improvements to Liberty Addition number 2, Phase 3, Magnolia Hills Estates Phase 3, Quail Meadows Phase 3, Golden Eagle number 4, Phase 3, Pacific Avenue improvements, some improvements to Des Moines Avenue, and some sewer improvements along Glen Avenue. Most of these are special assessment projects. Matter of fact, about $2.4 million in special assessments. South Ohio Corridor and Pacific Avenue will be at-large projects. The resolution number 6536 authorizes the sale of temporary notes in the amount of $3,205,000. These provide for the temporary construction financing for the following projects: Fire Station number 2, downtown traffic improvements, West Diamond Drive, Eagle Crest Townhomes, Quail Meadows Estates Phase 4, and Red Fox Addition. Fire Station number 2 and the downtown traffic improvements will be retired completely with the special sales tax proceeds at the conclusion at the maturity of these notes, and that was the source of funding identified for those projects. So those will never roll into permanent bond financing. As is normally the case, these issues have been rated by Moody's Investors Service. Our rating since 2005 has been a AA3 for the bonds and MIG1 for the notes. Moody's has once again confirmed that rating. Bonds rated at this level are considered to be high-grade investments. All of these projects are incorporated within our long-range capital financing plan, and repayment is manageable within the established policy limits. Recommendation is to pass on the second reading of the ordinance and then adopt by separate actions resolutions 08-6535 and 08-6536.
Questions of staff? Has Hutchison Shockey done business with us before?
Not that I can recall, no.
Do you know anything about him?
I do not. David, this is David Arterbury's representative, George K. Baum. He may be able to address that better than I can.
Sure. Yeah, I don't believe Hutchinson Shockey Early has ever actually successfully bid on the city's bonds before, but they are a very active participant in the municipal bond market, and I feel very confident that they'll be able to follow through and perform. They are going to be providing to the city a good faith deposit equal to 2% of the bond issue size that will basically guarantee that, that they'll perform and follow through with the completion of the transaction.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor Vanera, move that we approve Resolution 08-6535, authorizing delivery of $3,720,000 principal amount of general obligation internal improvement bonds, Series 2008-A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 086535. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Mayor Vanera, move that we approve Resolution 08-6536, authorizing and directing issuance, sale, and delivery of $3,205,000 principal amount of general obligation temporary notes, Series 2008-1.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 086536. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Mayor, I move that we adopt on second reading ordinance number 08-10454, authorizing the issuance and delivery of general obligation internal improvement bonds, Series 2008-A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 08-10454 on second reading. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Jelka,
Aye.
Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
Commissioner Peck,
Aye.
Commissioner Perney,
Aye.
Mayor Vanir.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.2, authorization of non-renewal of biosolids agreement.
Ms. Tasker.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The wastewater treatment plant currently generates approximately 1,100 dry tons of biosolids each year. These biosolids are the stabilized solids left over after the liquid process, and they're applied to agricultural land by a private contractor for a competitively bid fee. The current biosolids agreement is with Madison's Farms Incorporated of Salina, Kansas, which has an expiration date of December 31st, 2008, which was for a 5-year contract. This agreement may be terminated by the city by providing written notice to Madison Farms Incorporated at least 120 days prior to the said expiration date. At this time, other contractors have expressed an interest in being considered for the transportation and land application of the biosolids. To allow other contractors the opportunity to bid this operation, it's necessary to provide the written notification to Madison Farms Incorporated that the agreement is going to be terminated on December 31st, 2008, and not automatically renewed. A competitive bid process would be utilized to select the contractor for the next 5-year period. The 5-year period allows the contractor a reasonable time to recover their investment in equipment costs. There are no additional physical impacts associated with this item. The fee for the biosolids application is included in the wastewater treatment plant operating budget, and the allocated budget for 2009 is $195,000. Two alternatives are offered for the City Commission's consideration and action. The first alternative includes item 1 and 2. Item 1 is authorize staff to provide written notification to Madison Farms Incorporated of non-renewal of the biosolids agreement, which expires December 31st, 2008. And with the second item being authorize staff to advertise and bid the transportation and application of municipal wastewater biosolids for a period of 5 years, which would be January 1st, 2009 through December 31st, 2013. In lieu of these two companion items, the second alternative would be to authorize staff to allow the biosolids agreement to automatically renew per the terms of the current agreement. This time I would be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of staff?
Will Madison Farm be able to bid on this? I mean, Yes, you'll they just will. notify them that they didn't get it automatically, but when you open it up for everybody, they could bid on it as well.
That is correct.
Okay.
Other questions? Public comment? Bring it back to the commission.
this point, we just need the first item. Mayor, I'd move that we authorize staff to provide written notice to Madison Farms, Inc. of non-renewal of biosolids agreement, which expires December 31st, 2008.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to provide written notice to Madison Farms. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
So then do we need a second motion or
There's three
two?
total motions here?
We'll need at least two.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then I'd make the second motion that we authorize staff to advertise and bid the transportation and application of municipal wastewater biosolids for a period of 5 years for January 1, 2009 to 2013.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize staff to advertise and bid the transportation application of the municipal wastewater biosolids. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.3, resolution number 086537, authorize an annual city landfill professional engineering service contract.
Mr. Frazier.
Mayor and Commissioners, in order to comply with numerous EPA and KDHE regulations pertaining to the operation of our landfill, the city staff contracts out landfill engineering services. A selection process was conducted where a number of qualified landfill engineering firms were identified. The results of our request for qualifications and review of costs have yielded a recommendation for a new firm to provide landfill engineering assistance to the city. Staff is recommending this contract be awarded to Aquaterra Environmental Solutions Incorporated, located in Overland Park, Kansas. Aquaterra has provided similar landfill engineering services to other government and private landfills in Kansas. They have also obtained landfill experience in other states such as Arkansas, Illinois, Missouri, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. Furthermore, their references have given them high marks in the quality of their work and in their responsiveness, plus their hourly fees are very competitive. Staff is proposing a 20-month agreement which covers a contract time period from July 14th, 2008 through March 1st, 2010. Some typical services that we would require in a landfill agreement such as this is Task 1, Compliance Summary Report. It's an evaluation of existing and changing regulations. Task 2, Groundwater Reporting. That's the sampling and analysis of 25 water wells that we have, or groundwater wells that we have at the facility. Task number 3 is another example. We have closure, post-closure cost reports. These are calculations of future closure and post-closure costs. Task 4, Annual Air Quality Compliance Report. This is the production of a Class 1 operations permit as required by KDHE. And Task 12, that's a miscellaneous amount that we put in there for problems or issues that come up during the course of the year that really haven't been identified. In addition to the typical task, there are several other specific types of tasks that are unique in nature to our particular landfill that are in this year's agreement. These tasks would include Task 5, plume delineation. It's a geoprobe investigation to determine the extent of groundwater contamination off-site to the south of the landfill. I think you remember is that we've got some issues over there with chloroform and what do we have? We've got carbon tetrachloride, and so this would help to better define that. Task 6 is the installation and monitoring wells. To provide funds for installation of 4 monitor wells located or related to the geoprobe investigation. These are important. These are wells that have been required by KDHE for us to be able to install. Task 7 is another example. That's a cell design plan. We need to complete the design and development and construction level drawings for use in the bidding and construction of the next landfill disposal cell. We need to do that. Task 8, soil evaluation. A drilling evaluation on site will be conducted to determine the availability of soils. This is important to be able to determine how much cover material we have and how long that would last at that facility. Task 9 is a spill prevention control countermeasures plan, and that's to amend and update the current plan as required by KDHE. Task 10 is another specialized plan that we have this year, an update of the sampling analysis plan. Following the completion of the 4 additional monitoring wells, the existing sampling analysis plan will be revised and updated to include those new wells. Task 11, that is volume calculations. Upon completion of Task 8, the soil evaluation volume calculations will be performed to provide a more detailed reporting of the life expectancy of the facility. We've had a little bit of discussion on this, is that the information that the state requires doesn't really go into a great amount of detail for us to be able to evaluate the life expectancy of the facility, is that this is going to give us a better idea of just how many years that we do expect to have that facility in operation. That helps us in a lot of areas to be able to make decisions on how we run the operations. Our previous landfill engineering firm, CDM, is still under contract to provide preliminary geoprobing of the contaminated plume to the south of the landfill. Aquaterra then will pick up where CDM leaves off in addressing this task by continuing the geoprobing and installing the wells. We expect that to take place this summer. Payment to Aquaterra will be based on the actual cost incurred. Aquaterra is to provide the engineering services specified in each of the 12 separate tasks as identified in the exhibits or as requested by the city. However, total compensation shall not exceed $141,070 during 2008, $142,540 during 2009, or $9,100 in the partial year contract of 2010. We have reviewed the agreement and find these fees to be competitive and reasonable compensation for services provided. Sufficient funds have been budgeted within the 2008 solid waste budget for payment of these expenses, and funds have been requested in the 2009 budget to cover the landfill consulting engineering costs. Staff recommends the City Commission adopt resolution number 086537, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Aquaterra Environmental Solutions Incorporated to perform certain annual and special landfill engineering services. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. We also have with us today Mike Kukuck and Anastasia Welch from Aquaterra that would also be able to help answer any questions you may have.
Questions of staff? Any public comment? Bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd move we adopt resolution number 08-6537, authorizing you to enter into an agreement with Aquaterra Environmental Solutions Incorporated to perform certain annual and special landfill engineering services.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 086537. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Mayor Vanier, I move that the City Commission recess into executive session for 40 minutes in order to discuss with the City Attorney a matter subject to the attorney-client privilege for the reason that public discussion could waive that privilege and jeopardize the City's position in the matter, and to discuss a matter involving non-elected City personnel for the reason that public discussion of the matter would violate the privacy rights of the non-elected City personnel involved, and reconvene in this room at 6 o'clock.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recess into executive session for 40 minutes. Do you anticipate any action?
We do not.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. We're in executive session.